And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Tuesday, the 1st of July. We've turned the page away from June. Now we're in, climatologically, we're getting towards the hottest time of the year, and it's going to start feeling like it here later this week. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steven Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Good afternoon, Bridgette. You're inside some nice air conditioning. It's a good place to be today.
I am. It's a little warmer here in Medora than it is over on the east side of the state, but had an opportunity to interact with folks from departments of ag all across the United States, including Puerto Rico. It has been an outstanding conference here.
Nice. What'd you guys go over with at the conference? Any hot topics?
You know, I think what's interesting is this is a chance for North Dakota to highlight its agriculture to so many other areas, especially when they want to consider how to work together at a federal level for policy, but also international trade. Many other departments of ag don't realize the variety of crops that we raise here, how many countries we already have a shipping relationship with for export, but also the ties that we have with our energy sector to agriculture. Not only are we looking at ways to use our energy, whether it's with oil, coal, and so much more, but then agriculturally, how do we reclimate that land in order to bring it back into production so we can be either grazing it or using it for production ag, and there's so many different aspects to that. So it has been a great discussion with so many folks.
Good deal.
And for those who followed along during early on in President Trump's administration, as they were looking to make a decision on who was going to be the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, which then went to Brooke Rollins of Texas, one of the considerations was Sid Miller, who is the Ag Commissioner out of Texas, and I had an opportunity to shake hands and visit with Commissioner Miller earlier this morning.
Nice. Good deal. Good deal. Well, a good trip, and hopefully, well, I'm sure you taught some people things they probably didn't know before.
I am very much here to promote North Dakota agriculture in any way that I can from all aspects. And let's face it, I'm chatty, and I don't mind telling the good things about this state. And what a wonderful setting is to do it here in Medora. Many people don't realize what a hidden gem we have in a tourist spot. Maybe you want to go to Mount Rushmore this summer, but then drive on north and swing into Medora.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, the weather is going to be nice for it this week, and I know a lot of people have, they do have some time off this week with the shortened work week, and we're really going to see some pretty nice weather if you like the summer heat and humidity. We're in the low to mid 80s out there right now. We've got a few fair weather cumulus clouds from Fargo northward. South of Fargo, not much in the way of cloud cover at all. So we'll call it mostly sunny to partly cloudy for the rest of the day. Another warm one. Highs in the mid-80s with a west-northwest wind at about 10 to 15. Clear skies, low 60s tonight. And tomorrow, we're going to kick it up a couple degrees. Upper 80s tomorrow with light south winds. Then the humidity levels really kick up as we head into Thursday and Friday. With highs around 90 on Thursday, low to mid-90s for the 4th of July. Now, if you have any plans on the 4th, there is going to be a front that's going to be moving into the area as we head towards evening, and that is expected to trigger off some storms Friday evening into the overnight hours. Timing on this right now, and it may change, looks to be between about 8 p.m. and about 3 a.m. So most of the daytime hours should be dry. If you have any plans at the lake or the pool, it should be good to go. But as we head towards evening, and I know that's not the best timing for our fireworks displays, but it looks like it'll be coming in pretty close to that. But again, we'll time this out a little more as we head later in the week to give people a better idea of if this holds through. But we are expecting another round of severe weather with this as well. So if you're going to go camping, if you're going to be out away from any radio or TV, make sure to have you can get them at your local hardware store, a NOAA weather radio, a portable one that you can bring with you, and it's great to have if you're out and about, if you're camping somewhere, again, where you don't have access to TV or radio, and let's say your phone dies or whatever, you've got this as a backup. So something good to have, especially when severe weather, with the amount of severe weather we've had. In fact, I just got done writing an article earlier this morning, Bridgette, just for the month of June. The state had 33 confirmed tornadoes just for the month of June. That's the most we've had since 2018. Now, If we go back even further for the season, the closest we've had so far is 59 tornado reports in 2011 for the whole season, and we still have a ways to go. So let's hope we don't catch up to that one. That's
Well,
not a
I
record we
agree
want to
with
break.
that. Oops. I had a conversation just earlier this week with some folks saying, has our weather really changed? Or do we have more tornadoes and vicious weather than we've had in the past? So here's the reality of what I think. If you look back, and this is a kid growing up on the prairie in the 80s saying this, you know, we would kind of hear that there might have been a tornado, but there were a lot less confirmations. We didn't have information traveling at the speed in which we do today. And so I think we've always had weather like this. Some years are worse, some years are better, and we just didn't always know because, again, we didn't share all that information with everybody about, hey, this picture I just shot off my front porch with my phone, and now we can. But also, I think that there's a change in, how we report our weather. I think that if we went back in a broader picture than just the last 25 to 30 years, we would likely see some very big similarities into what has happened in the past. But there's a lot of things that factor into it. I don't think it's just all of a sudden we've had a real rash of tornadoes, but maybe we did for this year, and then next year we won't have as many. To be honest, in the years of the drought where we had things like dry lightning storms, those were pretty wild, and we saw a lot more of those than I've probably seen in the last 2 or 3 years here. So there's some variance.
Right. And I was reading articles online that, global warming and it's due to that and it's due to this and other things. And I know there's people in our building that think it's caused by chemtrails. and I'll be the first to tell you that's not the case. It's just not. So don't buy into the hype. But I do believe we are as on a whole, and we've got proof to back it up. We are warming. I mean, our planet is warming.
Sure.
And it's just, it's a cycle that we're in. I mean, there's other factors to it, but it's, and with warmer weather, you're going to have more moisture and you are going to have more severe weather. But again.
Okay, so is the planet, yeah, go ahead. But I have a comment about that. Is the planet warming?
No, go ahead, Bridgette. Go ahead.
And I would just say this, is the planet warming? Well, we have more people, more factories, more things that are going on. So sure, we're probably seeing 1 or 2 degrees warm up.
Sure.
It's the same reason that when I walked into this room the other day and there were 75 people in it, that was warmer than I wanted it to be, but it was sort of full.
Right.
So that happens.
There you go. Yeah. So
that's my analogy.
There. All right. Well, and it has been a more active weather season across the whole country. It's just, but there's so many factors that go into it that it's not just because of the warming of the atmosphere, and many other factors that are going into that to make this a more active season. Hey, is this going to continue into the winter? The last 2 winters we've had have been pretty lame or tame, whatever way you want to look at it. Could this lead into a more active winter? I mean, it's a possibility. Odds are we're not going to have a winter like the last 2, so let's see how this pans out for this upcoming winter. Should be interesting. Let's not talk about winter.
It will be.
We're still summer. Come on, we got to enjoy it. Our summers are short enough.
We do. And one of our listeners sent me a quick message, and he just said, it's amazing how everyone thinks weather's been so bad the last few years, but really it's been dry and not as stormy. So if anything, the last few years have been more of a severe weather drought. So
right.
There's a new term we can use.
It has
a severe weather drought.
Absolutely. Yeah. It has been. It has been. Well, we're coming up on break. We've got a different guest in-house today, or not in-house, but definitely not in-house. But who's our guest today, Bridgette?
Okay. One of my college friends sent me this contact, and I am very excited to talk to Steven today. Steven Hogg, or maybe it's Hogg, Hogg. We're going to ask Steven for sure. But it is Hogg Haven Family Farms, and they rent out chickens.
Huh?
Just let that sink in for a sec. We're going to rent chickens.
I want to rent a chicken.
Well, maybe you do.
Hey.
Maybe you just need some egg production for the summer. But we're going to talk to Steven. We're going to learn more about what that means. Also, sometime this hour, we will be giving away a qualifying round for the Great Grocery Giveaway. We're giving away $10,000 worth of groceries, compliments of Alsager Meats, Kingpins, and ND Estate Services. Stay tuned. You're going to want to be ready to dial the JLA insurance phone line of 701-293-9000 not only with your questions on renting a chicken, but qualifying for groceries later. We'll be back. Well, with potential for bad weather, you're going to want to make sure that you still have internet connection so you can hear things like the weather reports, you can check the radar, and so much more. And good connections matter, as well does your cybersecurity. Don't forget to give a call to Chris Sherman at Tech Support Farm to make sure that you are covered. In fact, he's got a fence check assessment on the website that you can check out and make sure, do I have all the right things covered? Because I'm not really sure, but Chris can help. Additionally, mark your calendars. It is back, and it is North Dakota Department of Ag's Project Safe Send. Starts next week. If you have unused or used and partially used and empty, almost empty containers with pesticides still left in them and you want to get rid of them, well, now is your chance. The Project Safe Send crew will be picking up items on Tuesday, July 8th in Cooperstown, the next day, July 9th in Larimore, July 10th in Devils Lake, and Friday, July 11th in Rugby. Please, if you have questions and you're not sure what should be dropped off, etc., you're going to want to talk to folks at the Department of Ag in Bismarck. You can check it out at nd.gov and find out for sure what can be delivered and reduced in your inventories, you might say, by taking them to Project Safe Send. Again, next week, Cooperstown, Larimore, Devils Lake, and Rugby coming to you. Speaking of coming to you, that's something that our guest does, is bring items right to you. We are going to be spending some time today with Steven, I think I say Hogg, H-O-G-G, of Hogg Haven Family Farms. Steven, did I get it right?
So it's Steven Hogg. H-O.
It is
just
Hogg.
like it was
Okay.
H-O-G. It is. Yeah, it is Hogg. So it's Hogg Haven Family Farms.
Tell me about Hogg Haven Family Farms. What do you got going on there? Because when you say Hogg
Yeah.
Haven, I envision this is a little like old McDonald's farm.
Yeah, so a few people often think that. So my last name's Hogg, so it's H-O-G-G. So I like to say that I'm a third generation farmer starting a first generation farm. And so it started with chickens for us. And I hope I said that right. A third generation farmer starting a first generation farm. So just kind of getting started on my own after leaving the farm, and chickens has been my entryway into this. So.
Okay. When my friend who lives in the Minneapolis area sent me this suggestion for you, she said he has a rented chicken business. Please tell me more.
Yeah, sounds good. So like I was saying, that's kind of how we got our start. It is something that I really have enjoyed doing. I ended up with some laying hens right away, and I quickly realized the small scale like laying hen operation was not going to pay the bills, let alone the feed bills. And so I got thinking about things, and I was like, I was driving to work one day, and I was like, you know what? A lot of people say to me like, oh, I wish I could have chickens. And I was like, I should rent these things out. And then I Googled it, and I'm like, this is a thing. Like, I can do this. And so that's kind of how I got my start. And that was 7 years ago, and now I'm still going strong.
So do you bring the chickens to do they rent them out from your location, or do you bring the chickens to their location and they rent them out there?
Yeah, so I bring the chickens to the clients. And so I often say, like, this is a great way to bring farming to folks that are in the city that don't have an opportunity to get into this, or to have a chance to, or much land to even work with, and often are kind of scared to get into chickens, a little scared to get started with it, don't know where to even begin. And that's kind of where I come in. And a lot of what I have like done, actually, a lot of my old clients, they've actually gone on to get chickens of their own. So I show up, I have everything you need. I've got the coop, I've got the chickens, I've got the feed, the waters, the grit, the calcium, just the knowledge. And I offer all of that for folks to be able to get into it and see if they like it. And often it's families that have kids, and that is so much fun. It is so cool. Like, there's one of my drop-offs just this spring, and the kids were just jumping up and down as I was just driving into their driveway. So
that's cool.
It's a fun adventure.
Now, Steven, so do you run into any problems like with city ordinance problems? Like, okay, yeah, I can't have chickens here within the city limits, or is that not typically a problem?
Question. Yeah, so a lot of cities are pretty open to this. There are some that have requirements, maybe coop size and things like that. So I have a standard coop. It's 7 feet by 3.5 feet that, the three laying hens can be in. Often these people are opening it up and letting these chickens roam around their yard once they're comfortable with them. But it is up to the client to go through and get any of the permits that they may need. And some of them, may say you need a little bit of a bigger coop. And so a few of, folks have just said, okay, well, we'll have the coop, we'll offer that. And then if you can just bring your knowledge and the birds and everything else we need, then we'll get started. So sometimes there's a few things kind of depends on the cities. But most often, it's 3 laying hens is pretty easy to put into people's backyards.
Okay, you have no idea how many questions I have just from me. And so, Stephen, we certainly want to give the opportunity for our listeners to give a call. And you can do that by reaching us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. If you are watching, you can be following along on YouTube and Facebook and Acres TV, WDAY, Weather and Ag in Focus. Dean and I are watching our emails, weather or ag at flagfamily.com. We'll take your questions. I got a lot. This is fascinating, the amount of things that you are doing with these. But as we stop to take a chance to listen to the bottom of the hour news, Dean, we do want to get our qualifier
We
started
do.
for the $10,000 grocery giveaway because we want someone to call us within 9 minutes and 70 seconds to qualify for that. And then we're going to come back to our conversation with Steven Hogg about the rented chicken program.
I can't wait. So today's qualifier, Charlotte Nelson, Charlotte of Moorhead. Again, 9 minutes, 70 seconds call, 701-293-9000. That's Charlotte Nelson of Moorhead. If you know Charlotte, shoot her a text, say, hey, better call in to qualify. And that's coming up. That's July 10th. We'll be giving away $10,000 in groceries. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We have a giant congratulations to give, and that is to our qualifier, Charlotte May. She got in within the 9 minutes and 70 seconds to qualify for the $10,000 Great Grocery Giveaway that'll be happening on Thursday, July 10th. And we thank all Sagar Meats, Kingpins, as well as ND Estate Services for their part in this project. So thanks, Charlotte. Glad she called. That's awesome.
That was.
Now,
And don't forget, Charlotte, you've got to be present. I believe, yes, you do. You have to be present at Kingpins on July 10th to see if you are the grand prize winner. So make sure you're there.
if you qualify during Weather and Ag in Focus, I'm rooting for you. I'm hoping you're our winner.
Yeah.
Now, additionally, with our Here We Grow project, we are custom farming 20 acres of wheat this year. And we are doing that with a couple of other sponsors. And one of them is Codeco Fuels and Propane. Now, whether it's planting, harvest, or the dead of winter, we know that farms don't stop. And actually, neither does Codeco. They will make sure that they have your operation going smoothly, whether they're delivering fuel, propane, bulk oils, and more. Don't forget about Codeco equipment when you are pricing out fuel this July, whether you're thinking about transports and other size loads. And then also Ellingson Companies is the expertise in the field when it comes to water management, tiling systems, and land prices and their value have really increased with the tiling systems that have been placed by Ellingson. And that price will remain consistent over the years. So look at your investments when you're thinking about tiling. Don't forget to call Ellingson Companies. So our guest today is Steven Hogg with Hogg Haven Family Farm. Oops, sorry, just got a bunch of noise in the back there. But the first question I have to ask Steven is, where are you located? Because it's not like you're just running in here from Horace to drop off any chickens in our neighborhood. Folks are wondering where you are.
Yeah, good question. So I am in Minnesota, in Clear Lake, Minnesota. So that's in between the Twin Cities and St. Cloud. So we have a small acreage farm there, and then I rent out some property that I farm some grass-fed beef as well. But the chicken program that we have operates off of our place there in Clear Lake.
And Steve, got a question for you. So let's say I'm interested in renting out some chickens. How does it? What if I have other animals in the house? What if I have a dog and a cat? How do they get along with the chickens? Does that pose a problem?
Appetizers.
Yeah, great question.
Appetizers.
Yeah, great question. To be honest, this kind of goes two ways. I feel like for people who are getting into the chickens, either they call me 1 week or 2 weeks later and they're like, "Come and get these things. I'm done. I want out. I know that I do not want chickens." And then you get those that are, we're into late November and things are freezing and they're like, "I'm tired of chipping water for these birds to keep open water for them. Can you please come and get them now?" We were so sad to see them go, but we loved it so much. So it is really dependent on the situation for each individual, like their lifestyle, their animals, and how they relate to the chickens. A lot of times we say, just expose them to each other slowly and teach them that like they're not for chasing, they're just for hanging out with. And as soon as you let a dog chase the chickens around, I mean, it's kind of over at that point. I think it just becomes a game, and that's probably hard to break. But if you introduce the animal, like a dog or something like that, to the chickens slowly through the cage, and you haven't let the birds out yet, I think that goes a lot smoother and has been pretty good for most folks. There's very few that have decided that this chicken rental thing is not for them.
So, do you give a list of rules to everyone, such as how often do you feed, water, just some of the things you'll have to do, like not letting the dog chase the chickens, that type of thing?
Yeah. So I do have a frequently asked questions that I give with them, and it's the beauty in all of this as well is that I'm dropping off the coops and they're there, and so it gives me the opportunity to kind of walk through and answer all those questions. But to be honest, like a lot of these folks, like they've never had chickens before in their life, and so all of it is brand new, and they're a lot of times they're like, it's kind of like when you bring home a brand new baby like from the hospital, and you're like, how on earth did like the nurses allow me to keep this thing and to take it home, like, and it's just you kind of like coddle them and you're kind of overly protective, and I think for most folks, like that is the case, and they're making sure that that water is pristine and clear and as the best water that it can be, and it's always full, and they're making sure that there's plenty of food, and they're making sure they're dishing out the treats and all of that. And so usually it goes pretty well. But yeah, we offer like kind of like a frequently asked questions, and kind of like helps them walk through what it is to care for animals and to care for chickens. Making sure that you clean out the nest box so that your eggs are clean, making sure that you are supplying nice, fresh, clean drinking water. You're making sure that their food bowl is full, but not overly full that they're just going to tip it over and waste everything, and you're going to be out of feed in a couple weeks. There's lots of things like that. The fact that they need calcium, that they need grit, they don't have teeth, that they do need to, have rocks to digest their food and their crop. Just all of those little things that you often don't really think about, and sometimes come naturally to folks that have farmed before, but to people that are haven't, it's all brand new.
Okay. Speaking of all that brand new, do you have a specific size or age of chicken that folks are receiving when they rent? What's the breed that you're most likely using as well?
Yeah, so we try to keep like a really nice variety of breeds for folks for kind of multiple reasons. The first one is, people love getting different colored eggs. So if you can have some like blue laying chickens, like an Easter egg, or if you can have like different colors of browns, like with Rhode Island Reds and silver laced Wyandottes or golden laced Wyandottes or Buff Orpingtons, they're all just a different shade to the egg, and that's fun. That's neat when you go out and collect those eggs and they're just different colors. What I have found though is that there is very few birds that beats a Buff Orpington for someone who is brand new and getting into chickens. I mean, they're just such a docile hen. They do well in both confinement and then letting them out to free range in your backyard. They can go and find clover and with the best of them, but they do well if you need to keep them inside the coop for a period of time. They lay well. And so all of that, I do try to keep all of my chickens fairly young for folks. So I'm typically around this time, maybe as late as October, I'm starting my next batch of chickens that'll be ready for next year, for the following year. And because it does take 6 months plus to 7-8 months for some of these hens to be able to start laying eggs. But when they're that young, they lay a ton. Like they're just giving lots and lots of eggs, which is what people want. So,
and we're not bringing out chicks, so that's a good thing to note. Yes.
Right. And we've got a caller on line one. Tom's got a question for Steven. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, just real quick. So what happens if the little kids of the family say to their friends, "Hey, come over, look at our chickens," and the kids say, "Yeah, that's great. Can they eat Can they eat rollades? Can they eat can they eat candy?" And the kids say, "Oh, sure, no problem. They'll eat everything." So the kids,
they're treating them right.
Slowly get sick. Exactly. So the chicken slowly gets sick. Now what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So we do, in our frequently asked questions, that's one of the things is like, what can a chicken eat? And I've had some people ask like, well, what about coffee grounds? It's like, no, don't feed your chicken coffee grounds, and so I tell people like no citrus, no sugar. But they love things like strawberry tops. They love things like, and I'll kind of have a list of stuff for them, like some lettuce that's maybe you're like, yeah, maybe, it's a little old for our family, but it would be perfectly fine for chickens. Giving them some fresh lettuce, they'll eat that up. Stick with their feed, but I mean, you can always treat a chicken. I mean, I say everybody should have some kitchen chickens, as often has said, and you give them some of the scraps from your kitchen, and then they supply you with eggs in return. It's kind of a neat thing. So, but great question. That is definitely with the little kids. And there is a clause in there that, if they do something and they hurt the chicken or kill a chicken, they are liable to have to pay for it. It is livestock. I treat them as livestock. But to be honest, I have not had any issues hardly. Like, I mean, there may have been one that I can think of in 7 years where somebody was like kind of negligent. Yeah, outside of that, it's definitely like people are just so careful with these, and they're so excited to have them, and they want to do a good job. So usually they're pretty
Well,
well cared for.
yeah.
Thank you.
Keep them out of the.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. I remind people, keep them out of the house. Wash your hands because they are an
Yeah.
animal. Nobody needs to bring
Mhm.
salmonella in. Um, you do this year round. I thought it was just summer, but no, they can keep chickens all year round, is what I'm hearing, Tom. Or Tom,
So
Steven,
I let
excuse
them
me.
keep them as long as they want. To be honest, most people don't love having chickens in the winter. I mean, I may be one of the few ones that enjoys tromping out into a snowstorm to go feed my chickens. But and to be honest, like in a small coop like that, they're hard to overwinter. Minnesota gets really cold, like and any of the Midwest states, get very cold and there's lots of snow. And so typically when you've got a larger coop and the birds can all huddle together, you can turn on heat if you need. That is something that they do really well overwintering at my place. But if just a small coop like that, it would be difficult to overwinter. But people keep them as long as they want, and then typically I'm bringing them out in the springtime for folks, and they're enjoying them through the summer. So that's kind of the beauty of it for them is they get to have chickens during the best time of the year. So.
And Steven, how far out do you deliver? If some like
Yeah,
let's say
I've delivered.
Go ahead.
Yeah, great question. I've delivered all over the metro area. To be honest, I probably should maybe not drive as far as sometimes I do. I'll go hour and a quarter sometimes to get to reach some people. I've definitely revamped my trailer. When I first started with this, it was one coop at a time. And now I've done I think as many as 4 in a batch. So that definitely cuts down on the amount of travel. So. But I most of my business is in the metro area.
Okay, I gotta ask. So you mentioned don't hurt the chickens, right? Nobody should get maimed, no broken wings, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But it might happen, and
Yeah.
someone decides that the best method is just maybe to butcher and make it supper.
Oh.
So is that supposed to happen if there's a bit of an inventory reduction, or do you take chickens back at some point and bring them frozen and ziplocked? I mean, what's the end result here? Because chickens eventually die, guys. I just hate to break
Yeah.
your bubble on this one.
Yeah, and that's part of farming. And to be honest, that's part of like teaching people about farming. And that's a hard thing. I mean, you ask any 4-H kid who has brought their animal to the fair, their project to the fair, and then it goes off for slaughter. I mean, that's a tough thing to understand. Is that you're loving it and you're taking care of it, but at the same time, it serves a purpose. And so I tell people this. I tell people like from the very beginning that these are livestock. They may be your pets, but they're my livestock. This is how I treat them. You do get some folks that are just interested in keeping those exact same birds, and so what I'll do is I'll band them on the legs, and then they can just keep getting their same birds back year after year after year, and they just keep them. They don't care if they even lay eggs anymore. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But then you do get a few folks that are interested in eating chicken. I have not had people eat these chickens, which it could happen. It's not something I guess I've not had that question, but it's typically with laying hens. In the end, they end up as what they call stewing hens. They make great chicken noodle soup, and they may not be your broiler that's super tender chicken. That you're maybe eating with grilled on the barbecue, but it makes wonderful soups and things like that. So explaining that to folks, I think, is a part of this whole process and kind of generates those good conversations too.
So my last question is for folks that want to keep their chickens longer through the year. There are variations in feed of what a chicken should be fed depending on the time of the year for egg production, etc. And do you make a regular route of these people still have coops and you're continually dropping off supplies through their subscription period?
Yeah, so I do try to get them enough feed to get them through most of a year in the very beginning. And then if they want to keep the chickens longer, if it's a long drive, they're willing to pay. Otherwise, I can tell them, for me to bring them feed. Otherwise, I can tell them where to get the feed. But to be honest, I prefer to control the feed. I know where I get it. I know what works really well for me, what works well for these birds. I've been doing this for many years, and so I prefer to supply them because I know that it's the right stuff. They're not just going somewhere and picking out something that was meant to be for starting baby chicks or something like that, and then ends up really, like you said, hurting the birds. So um, if they do want to keep them longer, it's always just kind of starts with that conversation, like, hey, we'd like to keep them. I realize it's going to make some drive time, as a part of this, and then they're willing to be a part of that process, to make sure that they can keep them longer. And sometimes we'll just like split it in the middle. I work towards the cities, and this is not my full-time job. Maybe someday it will be, but we'll meet somewhere and do a handoff there too. So there's always ways around that.
And Steven, I've got.
I am.
Go ahead.
I'm just
Sorry, Bridgette.
fascinated. I can't even.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just fascinated.
And Steven, one last question. Yeah, we're going to go a little long. Who cares? So I see you're a wildlife biologist. So do you still dabble in that at all, or is it strictly what you're doing now?
Yeah, so that is my full-time job. I do work as a wildlife biologist. I work in parks, and so it is what I went to school to do. I actually left the farm to go and do this, and it's kind of funny how you just can't get the farm out of you, and so I live a ways from the farm now, and so it's just a matter of me just trying to do this to get back into farming. And it's funny how things can just go full circle. I've often heard it said, there's no other occupation that you like work like a full-time other job to make sure that it can happen.
Right.
And farming is
That's
one
right.
of those occupations, like, so yeah, that's just me getting back into it, I guess. So
That's great. Now, Steven, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, let's say, they're interested in acquiring your services with renting out chickens, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
yeah, probably my website. So it's Hogg Haven Family Farms .com. And so farms has an S on the end. We're also on YouTube, Steven Hogg. And so it's at Hogg Haven, what is it? At Hogg Haven Farms. And then we're also on Facebook as well. So Hogg Haven Farms there. So that's probably the best way. Either three of those is the best way to reach me.
Oh wow, I'm just. Maybe the next time I retire and need a job, this is what I will do. But this is fantastic. So thank you, Steven. Just thank you so much for joining us.
I've got one of my best friends. He lives in Carver. He's got a huge yard. I'm gonna have to give him a call and see if he'd be up for something like this. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me today. I really, really enjoyed this. This is fun.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Steven, thank you. And don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll have a recap of the weather, the talk about severe weather coming in on the 4th of July, and the hot, humid weather to precede that. All of that and more coming up after the break. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. And let's do a quick recap of the weather because we've got some hot and humid weather on the way for this week. If you're on vacation this week, it's really going to feel like summer. Currently, temperatures in the low to mid 80s outside right now with partly cloudy skies. And we're looking at temperatures topping up mid 80s today, upper 80s Wednesday with light winds. And then Thursday and Friday, the humidity returns. It is going to be sticky with highs around 90 on Thursday, low to mid 90s Friday. And it still looks like a pretty good chance of seeing severe storms as we head into Friday evening and Friday overnight. Right now, timing on that looks to be after 8 o'clock in the evening on the 4th. So that may impact firework displays. Daytime hours look okay if you're going to be boating or camping, but just keep that in mind. And we'll fine-tune the timing of those storms as we head throughout the rest of the week. And today's weather has been brought to you by Progressive Ag Risk Management Specialists. So I wish we had better news on the 4th, although, for daytime hours, if you're going to be in the pool or out at the lake, it looks really, really conducive to be close to water. That's for sure. It is going to be a hot one, hot and humid.
Well, until the lightning strikes, good Lord, take it easy.
Yeah, this would be back-to-back-to-back Fridays of severe weather. I think we can kind of tone this down a little bit, Mother Nature. But, hopefully, ideally these storms come in overnight. That would be a big help, if especially for the firework displays. It's, big time of the year for that. So we'll see what we can do to hold those off. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
And tonight is the first night of fireworks out here at Medora for the musical because it's actually green and it's right up to the 4th of July, so we can do it without lighting the whole county on fire.
There you go. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus. Don't go anywhere. Jay Thomas Show, it's coming up next.